What's going on, Dub Nation? You're watching Warriors Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Tyler Smith, and the Golden State Warriors are sending a message to the rest of the NBA. Sitting at 4-1 through 5 games, have a tough 5-game road stretch coming up. But, man, without Stephen Curry, without Andrew Wiggins, without D'Anthony Melton, this team has risen to the occasion in back-to-back games against the New Orleans Pelicans. Great news for the Golden State Warriors. They keep finding more and more resources to get scoring punches from. That was a big issue that we thought we were going to face heading into the season. Who was going to step up and be a secondary scoring option next to Steph Curry? Then, 2 games into the NBA season, we see Stephen Curry go out. And then we're like, who's going to be a number 1 scoring option? We heard going into the year, it was going to be Andrew Wiggins, according to Steve Kerr. Then he goes out. The Warriors were depleted and not really given much of a chance against the Pelicans team that bolsters some superstars like Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. But they found a way. They found themselves down 20 in the first game. They came all the way back, and they decided to just take control there in the second half of game number 2. I mean, listen, man, Golden State is having a very, very awesome start to the year, and that's why we're bringing you coverage every single day here on the channel. So that's why you got to subscribe. We'll be live another time next week, Wednesday, when they play the defending champion Boston Celtics. A little bit of a revenge game for the Golden State Warriors. They got walloped last time they met the C's. So we're going to get revenge on Wednesday, beat Boston, and have a great road trip. So join us there, youtube.com/Warriors TV. Subscribe and turn your notifications on so you never miss a moment. Listen, Golden State's start to the season was phenomenal. I mean, when I was watching that game against the Portland Trail Blazers, I understand. It is not the best competition the Warriors started off the season against. Then they play the Utah Jazz, who, a little bit of a spite game for them as well, as Lauri Markkanen was in trade rumors all summer long, but they set the NBA record for margin of victory over the first 2 games of a season with a total of 77 points they won by. This team is surprising a lot of people, and honestly, man, they're a resilient group of players. Like, this group gets faced with a ton of injuries. They get faced with, guys not hitting shots to start the game. The beginning of that Portland game was ugly. The beginning of the Pelicans game was even uglier. The first game without Steph, first game without Wiggins. I mean, you knew heading into this year that offense would probably struggle without Stephen Curry on the floor. Lineups that didn't include Stephen Curry would probably not be as good as the ones that do include Stephen Curry. That's simple math, man. The guy is an instant Hall of Famer. I'd argue he's the best point guard of all time, and he makes a major impact on this roster. But without him, there were question marks surrounding where you were going to get your scoring from, and Golden State found it, man. I am so proud of the group that we've seen so far for Golden State, because I'll be first one to say I was not a believer heading into the season. I thought that they just made marginal moves that didn't really move them, too far up into the standings. Golden State is proving me wrong, and it's really because of this, right? They're playing incredibly unselfish. I mean, Golden State is moving this basketball around. I think that they understand as a unit, they don't have a go-to guy right now. There's guys that can hit shots, don't get me wrong. We're going to talk about those guys. But there's guys that, aren't used to that kind of weight or workload in their offensive game. They don't bring the ball up constantly. It's not always going to be them getting the shots looked for when you're within the flow of the offense. Everybody is getting buckets all the time in Golden State. And that's what's so great, because there's going to be nights where one guy's not hitting the lineup, and there's going to be other nights where he absolutely is. So I'm absolutely in love with what we've seen so far. And there's a couple of names that I like to go through here that personally to me are really making an impact so far this year. I mean, let's just start off with my guy, Brandon Podziemski. And listen, I'll be honest, I've been a proponent of saying that I would have included Brandon Podziemski in a deal for Lauri Markkanen. I would have included him in a deal for Paul George. Would I still? Probably. Let's be honest here. I think I would still make that deal, and I think a lot of Golden State Warriors fans would. But what Brandon Podziemski has provided for us in the absence of Stephen Curry, the absence of D'Anthony Melton, has been fantastic. I mean, he's averaging 10, 5, 4 right now. I expect those numbers to go up. He's been a little bit inefficient from the floor so far, but he's working on that floater game. He's working on his outside shot, and he's just everywhere for this Golden State team, constantly moving the ball up floor, trying to push the pace for Golden State, and he's putting his body on the line. Suffered a broken nose in the preseason, and this guy's taking charges, absorbing the contact of some of the biggest players in the NBA. Listen, Brandon Podziemski isn't necessarily some crazy physical freak of nature, Brandon Podziemski's a 6'4" guard who doesn't really have elite athleticism, but gets in the nose of defenses. I love what Brandon Podziemski does for this team, and I only expect him to get better as the season goes on. He's only in year 2, and I feel like he has such a mature game and such a great understanding of where he needs to be on the basketball court at all times. does make some, textbook young player mistakes, but that's going to come with it, and that's only going to be polished as the season and his career goes on. He's got a lot of high hopes for where his career is going to go. I also want to mention Draymond Green, because with Stephen Curry out, with DeAnthony Melton out, those are two guys, obviously Steph we know, but DeAnthony Melton we saw in the preseason was initiating a couple of sets for Golden State. He was bringing the basketball up the floor a lot of the times and letting Stephen Curry even work off the ball where he thrives. What happens when you lose both those guys? You really don't have many facilitators on this team. You put a lot of weight and a lot of responsibility on Brandon Podziemski, but he can't be the only guy out there handling the ball. He can't be playing 48 minutes a night. In comes Draymond Green at age 35. This guy is turning back the clock. He said before the season that he wants to be back in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation this year. Well, so far through 5 games, he absolutely is. We all had concerns about Golden State not having the size to compete with the big teams in the West. And to be fair, when they played the Los Angeles Clippers, they got dominated on the inside by Ivica Zubac. But since then, playing against the New Orleans Pelicans, and to be fair, they don't have necessarily great experienced veteran size on that team. Losing Valanciunas has proven to be pretty big for them so far this year. But Draymond Green is switching everything. He's defending Zion. He's defending Brandon Ingram. He's defending the bigger players down low for New Orleans. And I'm absolutely in love with that. I'm so glad to see Draymond Green buying back into this system for Golden State. And the system for Golden State this year is something that we were accustomed to about a decade ago, but now in the NBA, it seems like some teams have passed the Warriors by. That's a three-point shot. So the Celtics, the volume that they get it up at. I think last night, Jason Tatum shot a career-high 18 threes personally. They're putting up clips like we haven't seen before. But who's number 2 in the NBA in three-pointers made per game right now with about 17 and a half? That's the Golden State Warriors. That's been Steve Kerr's plan heading into the season, is get three-pointers up, and they are doing just that, and they have the talent to do it. They've built a roster. Mike Dunleavy, honestly, major shout out to him, man, because he made it happen. We criticized him over the offseason, and look what he's done. He brings in this man right here, the Splash Buddy, Buddy Hield, averaging over 20 points a game right now. He's in MVP conversations, for God's sakes, and he's absolutely lighting it up. Almost 50% from the field, almost 50% from 3. He started ice cold in game number 1 against the New Orleans Pelicans. And what did he do? Hit his final 6 threes of the game, 25 in the second half, 19 in the fourth quarter. He couldn't miss. And he fits so well. It fits like a glove in this offense for Golden State. You know who else fits like a glove and gives it all on both ends of the floor? The unlikely hero of game number 1 against the New Orleans Pelicans, Lindy Waters III. He didn't have as great of a game in the second outing, but let's be honest. Are we going to expect Lindy Waters to be putting up 23, 4, and 5 every single night? No, but when he does give you that, that's just going to be another, cherry on top to this Warriors offense that likes to get the 3-ball up, because he does it at a very high rate, does it at a very patient rate as well, very selective with his shots, and isn't afraid to get in the mud either. He plays elite. He plays really good defense. I'm not saying he's an elite defender, but he plays really hard. He gets in the mix, and that's all you can ask out of a guy who was told that he wasn't going to be in the rotation heading into this season. I love what I've seen from the newcomers, and honestly, I got to eat some of my words for how I talked about them heading into this season. I didn't have a lot of faith, but man, through the first couple games of the year, they're totally proving me wrong. Now, to be fair, I'm going to play glass half full here. I'm going to devil on the shoulder. Golden State did start 5-1 last year. And what ended up happening? Things kind of fell apart as the season went on. Rotation issues became more apparent. And at the end of the year, egos became too high. Doesn't seem like there's a lot of egos on this team. Doesn't seem like they're, anybody's ruffling anybody's feathers yet or taking over the spotlight. We'll keep tabs on a guy like Jonathan Kuminga and how he's, kind of pursuing a big-time contract for Golden State. But it seems like everybody is A-okay, and that is fantastic. Now, they started 5-1 last year. I actually didn't check what the next 5-game schedule was for Golden State in 2023-24, but this season, man, this next 5-game road stretch is going to tell us a lot about the Golden State Warriors. We're going to find out who they really are, because let's be honest, are we all sitting here and thinking that Golden State has played the elite competition in the Western Conference to start the season? No. And they even lost to a team that I think that they are better than at the end of the day in the Los Angeles Clippers. You lose Curry in the middle of the game, so things kind of get weird there. I think the Warriors could be undefeated and probably should be undefeated. They had that game at the end that they could have came back and won. But this next 5-game stretch, man, at Houston, they just knocked off the Mavs last night. They look to be much improved this year. Udoka's a fantastic coach. Wizards, better get a win there. Boston, Cleveland, OKC. three of the NBA's elite through the first games of this season. We obviously know what Boston can do. They're the reigning champs. They whooped on you last year. OKC got better, and Cleveland is surprising a ton of people to start the season. So these are going to be some of the biggest games on your schedule to start this season. So for me, I'm cautiously optimistic about going in because Golden State has been so good thus far. But what do you guys think? Predict Golden State's record over the next 5 games for me down in the comment section. I'm trying to hear what Dub Nation has to think. How optimistic are you guys on what Golden State will be able to do on this big-time 5-game road stretch? I'm going to have to get to my prediction on the back half of this video because I got to tell you guys about today's sponsor, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports partner with over 10 million active members, and you can get started today. Use our code CLNS, and Prize Picks will give you $50 for free when you play a $5 lineup. How do you play a lineup? All you guys got to do is pick 2 to 6 player stat projections and just click more or less on their stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll in. I've been a Prize Picks customer since before they were even a sponsor here at Chat Sports. I love how easy it is. I get my money in literally as most as 15 minutes after I hit withdraw on Prize Picks. Super easy. And they have so many other ways for you guys to win crazy money as well. Taco Tuesday, where they'll throw you discount and stat projections. Flex Friday, where even if you get a square wrong, they'll still pay you out. You can double your money even if you get an incorrect pick in your lineup. So download the app today. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use that promo code CLNS for a $50 for free when you play a $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50. Prize Picks. Run your game. Okay, so I'm going to say that the Warriors go 2-3 in that stretch. I know, I'm a hater. Blast me in the comments. I'm being pessimistic. I think that those 2-3 teams are better than them in the Eastern Conference, and then I think they'll take one of those games and then end up, maybe dropping one to either one of Houston or Washington. So I think 2-3 is a fair assessment, but let me know if I'm being a hater down in the comments. As we transition to the big rumor on today's mill, Golden State is monitoring a Jimmy Butler trade. You guys have called me crazy for the longest time that I talk about this, but man, seems like this is becoming more of a potential reality than we may have thought before. I didn't necessarily think this was going to be something that we brought up this early in the season, as Golden State has been very solid to start the year. But, man, it seems like this is coming back up at a time where, the Miami Heat are not really playing to the standard that they're used to. They're not really playing that Heat culture very well so far this year. And it looks like things are kind of crumbling for Miami, and especially for Jimmy Butler in Miami. Now, Shams Charania said that Jimmy Butler will not be signing any extension at all this whole season. Regardless of what team he's on, he will not be signing an extension at all. So if he gets traded to Golden State, it's a gamble. And there's no guarantee that he's going to want to stay long term. So that's risky. Like, do you want to mortgage your future for a guy who might not be here once the offseason is through? I understand, but at the same time, I can't discourage or not recognize the fact that Jimmy Butler would raise the ceiling of this team. Now, the funny thing is, who would have to be included in the deal? And we've talked about it at length because you have to make up a ton of money in this trade. Almost $50 million you have to coop in assets to go trade with the Miami Heat for Jimmy Butler. But what is Golden State kind of willing to do now, according to John Hollinger, national NBA reporter? They're more willing than ever to deal Jonathan Kuminga. I know, but Smitty, you're crazy. They're not going to trade Kuminga. They put so much into him. He's their future. He's the next era Golden State Warriors basketball. Let's be honest. Have you watched Jonathan Kuminga the first couple weeks of the NBA, or the first couple games of the NBA season? Yeah, he's had a couple nice ones against the Pelicans here. But what happened when he tried to kind of take over the show, kind of really tried to show his improvement, show the expanded game that he's gotten, where he thinks he's going to deserve a max contract upcoming. We haven't really seen it so far. The dribbling hasn't been there. The rebounding hasn't been there. The on-ball defense hasn't been great. To be fair, much improved in those games against the Pelicans. But we got to see more. We got to see the consistent outside shot that you were talking about, Jonathan. Guy's shooting 11% from deep range, and I think it only got worse because he didn't even hit a three in the second game against the Pelicans. I think he went 0 for 1. So we got to see improvements from Kuminga before I can worry about handing him anything close to the $30 million a year that Golden State was willing to extend him for back prior to October 21st. Kuminga wants $55 million a year. I ain't going near that number if he's the player now that we're going to get next year when he's making that type of dough. It's insane. And I'm not saying, guys, like, you don't have to make this trade now. But that's why Golden State is monitoring it, right? I'm not saying make this trade now. Golden State's 4-1. Keep stacking up these wins early in the season. Hopefully, you even increase the trade value of a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, so that makes this deal easier. Maybe you have to recoup maybe one less draft pick, include one less draft pick in the deal because Jonathan Kuminga plays to a little bit more of his potential. But that's yet to be seen. Like I said, man, it's yet to be seen whether or not Jonathan Kuminga is going to be up to that challenge. And at the end of the day, we know now Golden State's playing this power of friendship basketball, and they're moving the rock, and you're getting different stuff from different guys every night. But there's no doubt that Jimmy Butler raises the talent and raises the ceiling that this roster could reach. Jimmy Butler could put you in a position to contend and win the Western Conference if you pair him up with Steph Curry. I understand that he might not fit the mantra that Golden State is trying to play with this season, getting up a huge volume of threes. Jimmy Butler's never been that type of player, especially in Miami. But he might have to adjust, and he might have to kind of play within the flow of it if he wants to be a productive member of this team, because I think he can be. He's going to be the best of wing defender on the roster, and he'll also be that de facto tough guy leader maybe when a guy like Draymond Green's not playing up to his par, or Stephen Curry is having an off shooting night in the postseason, which doesn't happen too often, but a guy like Jimmy Butler rises to the occasion in the postseason and can make that thing happen. So I'm for a Jimmy Butler trade from the Golden State Warriors, but I'm trying to hear from Dub Nation. What do you guys think? Before we get out of here, I got to ask you, should Jimmy Butler get traded to the Golden State Warriors? Would you want Golden State to make a move for Butler? Let me know down in the comments section by typing Y for yes, type in N for no. I'm trying to hear from Dub Nation because I think Jimmy Butler could really make an impact on this Dubs team. And that'll do it for today's edition of Warriors Today. Make sure you guys give me a follow down there at Smitty at CS on Twitter, because I post Warriors news there before you guys even get a video. So give me up a follow over there. We can talk some Dubs hoops. And as always, like I said, subscribe to the channel. We're bringing you Golden State Warriors content like nobody else on YouTube. Live stream next Wednesday, so be there. I know it's a ways away. I'll keep reminding you guys. Hit that sub button, turn your notifications on. We'll see you in the next one. Let's go Dubs.